Okay, good morning, everybody. Welcome to the Board of Finance budget hearings beginning this morning with the Board of Assessment and Appeals. Before we get started, if you would join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Okay, so we have a busy agenda today. We start with all of our budget hearings meeting with each of the town departments. We began with the Board of Education last Tuesday, and we'll have a follow-up meeting with them again on the 18th. For those following along at home, the agenda can be found on the website at Trumbull, trumbleCT-gov. And if you look under meetings and agendas, there is no public comment at today's meeting. Comments can be sent to the board via our clerk, Phyllis Collier, pcollier@trumbull-ct.gov, and or directly to me at laneymcHugh@gmail.com, and I'll send them to the rest of the board. We do have 2 opportunities for public hearing. They will be coming up, and they are listed on the schedule as well. Anybody have any questions before we get started today? Okay, you'll see members of the Board of Finance and our alternates on this call, as well as Don Cantafio, Chair of the Town Council, and the members of the Finance Committee of the Town Council. We'll start this morning with Jeff Craw and the Board of Assessment and Appeals. Oh, and Tim Cantafio, I'm sorry. Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
For everybody interested in following along, we are on page 57 of the large budget book. Mr. Craw, what do you want to tell us?
We look forward to the coming year. We will use our very best efforts to meet the budget, but please keep in mind we initially asked for $2,900. It was cut back in the first selectman's budget to $1,950. The reason why it was higher this year is it's a revaluation year. It was supposed to have been last year. It was postponed 1 year because of the pandemic. And what we're seeing in the real estate market is that prices have fortunately gone up in the last year. And because of that increase, I think we're going to see quite a turnout in the coming year. People appealing, they've got the right to state if they feel they're overtaxed based on the assessed value of their property. And because of the revaluation, because of the recent appreciation in the marketplace, which is great, I think a lot of people will challenge that in the coming year. So we will make every best effort to meet the budget of $1,950 a year. But if because of the extra clerical costs, because there may be additional appeals, we may have to come back to you and ask for additional funding if so required.
Okay. Do we have an idea of what those appeals look like in prior years during a reeval?
Well, it's normally done every 5 years. Because of the postponement, it's now every 6 years.
Right.
And frankly, that was a different market environment. In the 2015, values were at best steady at that point. So whereas today, people will probably be more prone to appeal because values have gone up. This past year, for instance, market values have increased in the 20-25% range, according to most statistical analysis that have been done.
Marty, I see your hand up.
Yeah, just a quick question. What's the cost of managing an incremental appeal?
Can I defer to Mark? You're on, right?
Yeah, do you mean for the board?
If you guys could announce yourselves as you come on the call, please.
Yeah, again, sorry, so this is Marty Isaac. I just was trying to understand the cost of you managing an incremental appeal. Does $1,000 cover it, or, for however many appeals you're doing? I just wasn't sure why, if there's going to be a lot of appeals, I don't understand the cost relationship.
You want me to respond, Jeff?
Please.
Yeah, Mark DeVestern, assessor. Their biggest costs, I think, are clerical. So the more appeals that they get, the more time the clerk has to spend with they have to mail notices out after the meetings. They have to contact anybody who's appealing and set up, appointments. It's mostly clerical, the expenses. So the more appeals that they have, the higher their clerical expenses are going to be, and the longer that the more meetings they have to hold, et cetera. And then it's responding after all the decisions have been made, all that. That's where the expense comes in.
So just Carter, there's not time-based for employees. I know there's a lot of volunteers, but time-based for employees dealing with this, that's not an issue.
Yeah, they've had the same secretary for about 10 years. She's a part-time employee of our office.
Okay.
So I'm not quite sure of the rate.
All good. If clerical is the issue, then I see 1,000. I understand. Thank you.
Yeah.
Anybody else have any other questions? Elaine?
Yeah, Mark, are the hearings that you hold recorded, or do you need a clerk for that, or is it just the paperwork before and after?
She keeps minutes. I don't think they record normally.
Okay.
It's normally just an exchange of, they say why, they tell the board why they think that their property, whatever the problem is, if something's wrong or if they think it's overvalued. The board listens and makes notes, and then they make decisions later.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Maria, is it possible to find out in the last reevaluar what the rough number of appeals that they had to, what the difference, like how many they went up in the eval year?
You're muted, Maria.
She's trying, I see her trying.
I'm trying to maneuver my mouse between two screens there. Sorry. Are you referring to the clerical fees? If I go
Oh, yeah,
back, go ahead.
the clerical fees and just the overall like number of appeals that they had to deal with.
I don't know the number of appeals that they had to deal with. I defer that one to Mark. But as far as clerical fees, we go back, I went back a few years, and the highest have been in 2014. I don't think that was a valuation year. I think it was 2015 was $1,000, 1,044, 1,200. That's historical. Last year was 2019 was 1,240 and so forth. But as far as number of appeals, I don't have that information. Maybe Mark.
Okay.
1240 last year.
No, 40. Mr. Maria, you're fairly comfortable with that $1,300 number?
For now, yes. I mean, I don't know how many appeals are coming through. I'm just estimating based on the historical information that I have in front of me.
Okay. Anybody else have any other questions?
Lainey?
Elaine?
Yeah,
Yeah.
hi. Elaine Hammers. I have one other question. Are we still publishing these legal notices in the paper, or have we gotten any relief to be able to do these on our website?
They put them in the paper. In
Do they still
addition
have
to
to
the
be?
website. I'm sorry.
Do they still have to be in the newspaper? Because I thought some of the P&Z or zoning things we were allowed now to put on our website.
You mean, was that because of an executive order?
I don't know if it was for
No.
COVID. I guess we can ask them when we get
Well,
to them.
it's in statute that they have to post it. They have to have a legal notice.
Okay.
Okay.
I think,
Either,
as far as I know, yeah.
either Cindy Katsky or Kathleen McGannon are on the call. Maybe they have an answer to that.
Thank you.
And then Paul Timpanelli?
Yes, Paul Timpanelli, Board of Finance. Mark or Jeff, do either of you happen to know the approximate won-loss ratio of the appeals that are filed? How many taxpayers win their challenge and how many do not?
I don't know that.
Know that.
Formal appeals, I just roughly, I didn't bring the numbers with me, but during the last reval, I think we ended up with 24 commercial appeals after the revaluation and 0 or 1 residential appeal. This is after the board, that they went past the board. And then some of those, a lot of them got settled or dropped off, and then there were a couple of big ones that continued on. So win-loss, I'm not quite sure. They had more than that in terms of appeals at the board, but a lot of them were minor. I mean, they were small
Right.
things.
Right.
They weren't, nothing It was a lot of the larger commercials by state law, they're allowed to pass on properties that are $1 million or over.
Right.
So they don't end up with a lot of the large commercial appeals in the end at the board. They kind of go straight to Superior Court if they want to appeal.
And a small follow-up, if I might, when does this process begin and approximately when does it end?
You want me to answer that, Jeff? Or next year, so this covers,
Number thing.
assuming the grand list and the reval is done. I mean, the state law says we always try to be done by the end of January. The law does allow a 1-month delay if you need it, if you're backed up. So assuming no delay, if there was a delay, you just push everything back a month. But so people have to apply for the board by February 20th, February 1st to February 20th, basically after the grand list is completed. And then the board holds their meetings in March, which can extend into April in a revaluation year if they need to. And, and then notices would go out obviously at the end of that to the people who attended the meetings.
And those dates would be 2022 dates.
Yeah.
Got it. Got it. Thank you.
22. Yeah. They have a meeting in September that they have to hold every year just for motor vehicles. That's
Right.
state law. Yeah.
Thanks.
Excellent. Okay, I don't see any other hands. So if not, we can say thank you to Mr. Craw and Tim Cantapio. And we can move on to the tax assessor's office. We'll be on page 49, Marty.
Thanks, guys. Have a good day.
Thank you. Good luck.
Bye. All right, moving back to page 49. Mr. Delvestern, you're still on the hot seat, right?
Yes. Yep.
Okay. Can you start just looking at your goals for 2021 and just tell us how you did, where you're going, and what your goals and objectives are for next year?
Well, obviously, COVID threw a monkey wrench in a lot of plans. So, I mean, part of the goals last year were to do this revaluation. So since that got pushed back, that was not on there. We had ongoing some large appeals that continued on. We had a bunch of changes. We had some retirements in the office and things like that. So we've been busy trying to keep that going. So this year we're looking to, obviously we have to implement this revaluation. Another goal on here was we're going to attempt, and we were looking at this previously, we're going to attempt an implementation. Our vendor does provide an online service for filing business personal property forms where people can, do this online and submit as opposed to mailing them in. It requires us to be ready very early, which was a problem this year with COVID. Anyway, that's, so we're going to see if we can accomplish that. My understanding, there isn't a huge, one town I talked to said maybe they get about 20% of folks filing online, but it's a good thing if we can get it implemented. And then I just have on here the ongoing appeal work. We're still dealing with some leftovers, mainly this digital property is the big one that's on appeal. And I'm thinking most other things have been at this point settled between the mall and more recently there was an appeal with the new Park Avenue medical thing that's been not as big an appeal, let's say, in terms of dollars, as the mall or the digital property. But so everything, I think it's down from the previous revaluations down to the digital property. Yeah.
Okay. Marty, you have a question?
Yeah, quick question. So I see on the, when I look at the profession line item 202, I understand the reval for 215,000, and I see at 150,000 there for tax appeals, and the first selectman reduced that. So now you're at 320. So just want to confirm that you're comfortable managing at 320.
I think that there was some contact made to the, I can never, I think it's hard to predict those things. I know that we reached out to the attorney and asked him for some estimates, and I know he came back with some wide ranges depending on, where an appeal might go. So I think that, this is a number that obviously the first selectman was comfortable with changing our budget to.
Okay. Well, it sounded like because other things have been settled, I just wanted to hear from your perspective, making sure others were settled, and that's a good number. Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Okay.
We're gonna go to Michael Barker and then Vinny. Michael, you just got to unmute.
Thanks very much. Michael Barker, Board of Finance. Thank you, Lainey. Mr. DeVestrin, I'm really excited about being able to pay my taxes online as I pay all my other bills online. And I am an enthusiastic taxpayer of the town of Trumbull. I wonder if you could talk about, besides the convenience for consumers for the taxpayer, is there any efficiency that is achieved by implementing this system? Or is it just a nice thing that we're doing for the folks to pay online?
That's more of a tax collector question. I do think it, I think she likes it. I'd let her explain that, I guess.
Okay.
Yeah.
Mr. DeGennaro. And then Elaine.
This is Vinny DeGennaro, Board of Finance. My question is similar to Michael's. I saw that the software upgrade was cut, and I am assuming that's the online portion. And is there any other functionality that comes with it?
It's just we're being told at some point we have to upgrade the vision. It will improve the online experience, but it's really not a loss not having to do that in the year with in other words, we're thinking that we can do this in the next fiscal year, because on top of doing the reval, implementing the software upgrade, we don't want to take any, we don't need anything extra complicating things. If there's any complications, there might not be, but it doesn't, I think it won't affect our ability to do the reevaluation, and it can wait till the next year. As far as that goes, we're being told we do have to do it eventually. It partially has to do with trying to think of the software basis for the old, it's Oracle or something. I think it no longer,
Oracle, yeah, sure.
they no longer can support that, and I don't know. But most of the towns have moved over. It's okay to, I mean, it works okay now. There'll be improved functionality once we get it, but we can get through the reval and everything without it. I think as long as it doesn't blow up. And so I don't understand all the, the Oracle part of it, but anyway.
Okay, it makes sense. Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, we're going to go to Elaine and then Paul, and then I promise you, Mary Ellen LeMay, we haven't forgotten you.
Hi, Elaine Hammers, Board of Finance. Mark, I do have a couple of questions. First of all, I do want to tell you that for 2 years, I've done the New Haven property tax online, and it is a lot easier. From a user standpoint, it's really the way to go. The only thing I wish it would do is automatically pre-populate the years it's moving forward. Why it makes me move them forward, I don't know. It seems simple, but they don't do it.
Question for Donna.
Yeah. The question I have is, you mentioned about the appeal on the Park Avenue facility. Now, I thought most of that was Yale as a nonprofit. Is that taxable, or
No,
part of it, all of it?
they're a tenant in that building.
Okay.
So that is a taxable property, because the owners, that's
Okay.
what's important. Even if they owned it, that might still be taxable. Now, that's a long explanation. I don't want to.
Okay.
There's a law on the books about, and it specifically refers to, it's really about them, I think, because it refers to a health system with so much revenue, and I think they're the only ones in the state that have that kind of revenue. I think it was written more probably in mind, you keep in mind New Haven, that they have so much, they own, I don't know what percentage of the town they own, but it got to the point where I think they said that if they have a facility that's not considered part of a hospital campus,
Okay.
as rated by Medicare or somebody, you know, and isn't within so many yards of a hospital campus, it's taxable.
Okay.
So that I think had they even bought this because of that statute, it would have been taxable. So I don't think there's, but you know, so but as far as some other things like some of the personal property for, you know, hospital operations, that kind of stuff, that's not taxable. There's a lot of that had to be sorted out.
So all the equipment they have in there, the big MRIs and CTs are not taxable.
Well, the ones that are related to the hospital operations, yeah. So in that particular building, which is you know, those are condo units over there actually, which is another thing. So the new building is Unit 10, and then there were 7 units in the original building. There's 8th unit out back was, I think, around 2013 or so. They added a outpatient radiology outpatient building. So some of those are kind of like doctors' practices in the original building. Then you've got that outpatient radiology in the back, and then this new building, which is the Park Avenue Medical Center.
Okay.
So that's all considered hospital operation.
Okay. And then one last question. Sometime in the last year or two, it's probably 2 now, we had a big presentation on a tax appeal that we had to do in executive session. My question only is, has that issue been settled, or is that one still ongoing?
It's still ongoing, I think, on appeal. There was a decision made by a judge at the lower level. I think that, you know, it wasn't we don't agree with the part, you know, we don't agree with a whole lot of it, but there's one part of it in particular that we think is incorrect, or the attorney thinks that, you know, I can't get into all the details,
Right.
but I
It's
do
okay.
know he's filed an appeal.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. But have we already seen the impact of that decision in our grand list?
No.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
All right. Mr. Timpanelli, one more question for the tax
Yes,
assessor.
yes, Paul Tempelli, Board of Finance. Mark, can you update us? I know you alluded to it earlier, but I didn't catch it. Can you update us on the exact status of the mall appeal? And secondly, do you have any personal knowledge as to how the valuation of the mall is determined? Is it based upon income? Is it based upon replacement cost? Is it comparable sales, or is it a combination of the above? Do you happen to know the answer to that question?
Yeah, the first question is that mall appeal has been settled for about a year or so.
Mhm.
That's stemming from the 2015 revaluation.
Right.
So that's been settled, and that is in the grand list numbers, you know, or reflect that. And as far as the value, it is based on income. Most
Based on
commercial properties that are, you know, any commercial property that has rents involved that are, you know, basically tenant, you know, I'd say the majority of them, most properties, but definitely a retail property like the mall is going to be an income, you know, is the determining factor for valuing the property.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, any other questions about the numbers in his budget? Excellent, thank you so much. That was a good start to the day.
Okay, thank you.
All right, you're welcome. We're going to be skipping around in our agenda just a little bit because we're flexible like that. We're moving down to our 4:30 appointment with Mary Ellen LeMay for the Conservation Commission, and we can find her stuff on page 157. Does that work for you, Marty? Hi there.
Hello there. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, great. Great. Thank you. So, yeah, so my invitation said 8:30. So I actually got up and brushed my hair and was postponed, really supposed to be later. So I'm ready to go.
Well, we were all here at 8:30. We were just going to be here. You were going to be our last stop of the day. So we're good.
I was just going to hang out with you guys all day. Yeah, so the budget for this year is going to be less than the last 2 years. Because the last 2 years we had requested $5,000 for the natural resource inventory, which was a 2-year process, and that's been completed. So that's great. We're in the process of editing it, and we will do some outreach, not only to the town staff, but also the community at large on this property, on the inventory, and then it will be available for people to look at. So for this budget, I'm kind of back to where I had been in previous years, which is about $1,200 a year.
Madam Chairman, it's First Selectman Vicky Tesoro. I'm not sure that this actually was adjusted properly, that I'm looking at this.
Okay.
That 5,000 needs to be removed from my line of the budget. I'm not sure Mary Ellen actually, I don't think she would have actually asked for it because we know it was paid last year or during this fiscal year. So that should be removed from the budget, the 5,000. Correct, Mary Ellen?
Okay.
Yes, correct. Yep.
Yep.
Yeah.
We
So
just missed that. So
yeah. So the printout that I have, it says available budget 1,205. Way over on the right.
Right. I think that if I look at what's on page 158 in our budget book, that if we remove that 5,000, that it looks like you will have 1,385.
Okay.
But Maria, am I correct? Am I missing something? Did we forget to take something else out?
No, as far as I know, it was just the 5,000 was missed as far as the cut. Yes, everything else seems to be okay according to the discussion we had with Mary Ellen.
Mrs. LeMay thinks she's getting less. Did we make a mistake? I don't want to surprise her yet.
Well, that's kind of what I'm reading off of the
Okay.
form. So
That's exactly the same she received last year, other than we went for a supplemental for the 5,000. So it hasn't changed.
Okay, good. Well, don't tell her she's got more than she thinks. We don't want every department getting all excited. Can you talk to us a little bit about your goals on page 157? You have some goals to complete the phase 2 of the natural resource inventory, which you did, to launch the pollinator pathway with the town team. I'm on the pathway, by the way.
Yay, good for you. Yeah, so that's going to be our big goal for this year, and then also rolling out the natural resource inventory to the public. We may work on a public survey on conservation and open space in general, just to take the temperature of the town and see if they're aware of how fabulous this town is in terms of open space and parks. And then we were considering working on a tree replacement plan with the Sustainable Trumbull team. And, we have 2 of our Conservation Commission members on Sustainable Trumbull. So the tree replacement plan has been something that's been on our idea list for a couple of years, with all of the removals that have been going on by the utilities. Some towns like Fairfield have established tree replacement plans so that, hopefully in another half century, we'll have our tree canopy back. But these are goals for this year. Primarily, I have 4 new commissioners who were sworn in by Vicky last week. And part of the professional development that I'd like to use out of this budget will go to them. So typically the memberships that we have in the Connecticut Land Conservation Council and the Connecticut Association of Conservation and Inland Wetland Commissions, those are 2 organizations that we pay dues to. They provide educational programs, certifications, and professional development for commissioners. So that's what I will use that money for coming forward in this new budget, is to get these new commissioners trained and up to speed.
Awesome, thank you. Anybody have any questions? Well, you're a happy spot in the morning. You would have been a happy spot to end the day on too, but thank you.
Thank you, Lainey. Appreciate that.
All right.
Thank you for taking me early. I appreciate it.
Have a good day.
Thanks, you too. Bye-bye.
All right. Let's see, moving on. Mr. Dunn, our building official, we're moving on into public safety.
Good morning.
Hi there. There you are. I had to find you on my screen. Good morning. We are moving on to page 223, Marty. That never gets old, sir.
I had it before you, though. I just want to say.
Well, I'm just making sure everybody else knows where we are. I didn't ask you to rise, though. All right, Mr. Dunn, walk us through.
So we've been very creative in keeping the building department going seamlessly without through all this COVID. We just started accepting credit cards 2 days before the town hall closed, and we came up with some procedures on the fly. We had no idea that because of the fact that nobody was able to go anywhere, that they'd be staying home and either adding a pool or renovating their house. So the number of permits we had increased significantly. Excuse me. But for the most part, we managed to keep up with it. We all sort of developed roles. The staff of my department handle on what they handle. And for the most part, other than, wearing us down because of the amount of permits we've had, we've managed to hold our own. When last I did the report, which was just a little bit less than 50% through the fiscal year, we were at 49% of our estimated $875 in permit fees. Thankfully, we had some pretty good jobs. A couple were a surprise, like the Amazon. And I'm very confident that we'll be able to meet our goal this year. The only place that we had gone over in our budget was the overtime. All of my staff has been, basically, we're doing whatever we have to do to get everything done. I ran out of overtime money early after we closed, and myself and my staff, we just kept working just to get it done. We didn't put in for overtime. The girls in my office, I gave them comp time, but being as busy as we've been, it's like impossible to take time off because you dread coming back because, I have 103 emails and 35 permits I need to invoice in order to get it, to get caught up. But we're getting it done. So the overtime, which was basically due to COVID, was the only thing that is out of the ordinary for my budget. So looking ahead, we basically went with the same numbers that we had for last year. The state, because of COVID, delayed the new building code from adopting the 2018 in 2020, the 2018 building code in 2020. They decided to hold off and adopt the 2020 code in 2021. So thankfully, I didn't go out and buy all the books. I try to split it up between fiscal years. So, I'm not spending all that money just on code books. And it's worked out because once the new books are out, we're gonna wind up having to buy code books for that.
As far as your goals for next year, training and coordinating with other departments, utilizing new permit software, and finalizing the online permitting software.
Right.
And to attend continuing education on code enforcement, which sounds like a real fun class.
Oh, you have no idea, especially now virtual.
public interaction techniques and remote inspection and permitting techniques. And you think those are doable? for
I
your
think they're
goals for next year?
doable. Part of the process, we've been moving over to this VOC that emergency management uses, and they've developed a permitting software. And we've probably had the biggest gains forward in the last 2 weeks that I'm able, rather than manually invoice people through the credit card company. So a quick recap for the process: people would email permits in, applications. We would do the review of the plans, and one of the inspectors would say, okay, this is okay to invoice, and it would get moved into a folder. And I would take that and I'd create a customer in the credit card program, email them out an invoice. When they pay the invoice, I'd get the invoice, the receipt, label it with an address, move it into a folder, slide it over the permits to be processed, and then Laura would take care of all the online permits. And then we would manually set up the inspections. Just this past week, we've been able to create the permit in the VOC software. It would automatically invoice and would automatically automatically issue the permit. Part of the step is, in order for somebody to take out, if they put an addition on, for instance, they're going to need approvals from wetlands and zoning and engineering to make sure they're not building it in a swamp or they're not putting it too close to the neighbor's yard. So we're trying to get those other departments so they can check off in the program, get the approval, and then once all the approvals met, it would send the invoice out to the people. So we've had a couple glitches, but we're definitely moving forward. Like I said, to the point where now I can do it in the program and it's saving some steps. There's been a couple issues that they've showed me how to get around. So it's basically training the other departments how to handle it that way and moving forward. But I'm pretty confident. I don't know how much longer I can do these invoices by myself because it's crazy.
Mr. Barker, you have a question, sir?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Michael Barker, Board of Finance. Mr. Dunn, thank you for this great report. I have just one question about revenue.
Sure.
I think I'm reading it right that we had 871 more or less thousand in 2019 in permit fees, 861 more or less thousand in fiscal 20, and that you said that we're on track to make the 875 more or less this year.
Correct. Yes.
And so the next year projection, unless I'm misreading the report, which is highly probable, it looks like there's $770,000, or am I misreading that?
Correct. No, it's substantially lower. At this time next year, we had the Woodside Apartments on track to go. We had the 101 Oakview project. We had 10 Trumbull Way project. There was some stuff that was supposed to start on the mall. And like I said, the Amazon project came up, which was a pleasant surprise. And if the Amazon project didn't come up, I wasn't confident that we were going to meet the goal. Coming up this year, as we see, trying to come up with a number is dealing with something that we have absolutely no control over. It's just, experience, and we're just trying to come close so you can set a budget knowing, how do you know how much you can spend if you don't know how much you have coming? So the only big project that I see coming in the next year is the apartments next to the mall. Mm-hmm. I know they're looking to knock down the old CVS building in Trumbull Center, but I haven't seen new plans on that. So I have no idea. The Monroe Turnpike property up there, I'm not sure what's going to happen to that. Every once in a while, like I say, something will come in that we're surprised about, and we get lucky. So I'd rather err on the low side than say, all these projects are going to hit, and I'm just not sure what's going to happen. So I rolled it back to what we did, previously when it was just like a normal year.
That makes a ton of sense. I have a high degree of empathy in my industry. We have to budget the same way. I guess what the follow-up I would ask then is, in the current year, do you have a sense of how much of that revenue nut was coming from these pools and residential renovations that were unexpected? Because it sounds like we have a possibility that we might get hit two ways next year, with reduced commercial development and then also reduced residential development.
Right. I can get you a breakout. I don't have a breakout of that substantially, but to be honest, the commercial jobs are where.
Right. Okay.
Right, the revenue, the smaller things. And Trumbull is, the way the fees are based in Trumbull, I am really confident in. And the problem is you don't want to raise permit fees because you're going to have people start to do jobs without permits. They're going to complain and they might not do a project if the permit fees are too high. So I'm pretty comfortable where we are as far as the fee schedule. Years ago, we came up with for the residential jobs, we came up with a square foot value of the jobs that we use. So if somebody's going to build a house, we'll figure $90 a square foot for the first floor, $80 for the second floor, $30 for a deck, $30 for a finished basement. So if somebody comes in with a lowball figure, we can do it by the square footage and say, this is what the job is worth. It's not, you're doing it yourself. You're not going to finish the whole thing for $1,000. I'm sorry. Well, commercials, it's much different. What we do is a lot of times and this is just experience, that if somebody comes in with a number that we think is too low, we ask to see a copy of their contract. So I think we're pretty accurate with our permit fees. I think the permit fees are in a good place. And like I said, I'd be hesitant to raise them.
And while I wasn't asking about permit fees, you've now sparked another question, which is, when did they last go up?
They, believe it or not, they last went up in 2007.
Okay.
That's for the square footage value for residential. And every couple of years or so, I'm friends with some of the inspectors in surrounding towns. And with the exception of Easton, which is ridiculous what they charge for anything, all the other towns like Stratford and Fairfield and Shelton, we're all pretty much in the same ballpark as far as the value of the jobs.
Great. All right. Well, I'd love to see that breakdown on fees when you're able to get it to us. Thank you
Sure.
so much.
You're welcome.
Okay, I've added that to the list of follow-ups that I will send out reminders for. And then I see Elaine, you have your hand up.
I do, thank you. Elaine Hammers, Board of Finance. Hi, Bob, how you doing?
How are you?
Good. I have a concern about something you said, and this board had lengthy conversations about properly paying overtime and not, because then we distort our real expense, particularly when we push it off to comp time that somebody eventually can't take, and we have to turn around at some point and pay for it. And I think what you describe is a perfect scenario where we're so busy, you give me comp time, but I can't take it.
Right.
And while I need the time off, it's really not available. And I believe that in certain positions and certain of the union contracts we have, we really are required to pay the overtime. And the proper thing is to come back to us to ask to cover the overtime because they're working. I mean, there's no question. You can
Sure.
document the hours. Nobody's, questioning any of that. The other problem that creates is we end up with the comment that we have in the budget now where, well, we're reducing your request based on historical usage, but the historical usage is skewered.
Sure.
And so we take out money. And in fact, if we actually had the usage, the 10,000 might be the more appropriate number than the 7,000.
Sure. And I completely understand that. And I keep an eye on the comp time. And the people that I was giving comp time to, I do not have a substantial backlog of comp time. They've been using a lot of it.
Okay.
One of the staff in my office had a family member who was sick, and they would take a couple hours off at the end of the day to do what they needed to do and stuff like that. So I'm quite aware, and I keep an eye on it. So there is no backlog of comp time.
Good. And so what's your thoughts about the 7,000 versus the 10,000 that you thought you needed for overtime?
So far, I've hit a substantial overage of my overtime for this year. And I've spoken to Dan Martin, and he thinks a lot of it can be reimbursable because it's all due to COVID. And so he was going to work on that. The reason I bumped that number up is because as the COVID winds down and we move towards a more normal permitting process, I still think, I believe that there's going to be a lag where it's still going to take us more time to catch up to the point where the permitting software will be able to do a lot of the stuff that we're spending a lot of time on right now. So I didn't want to go crazy with it. I wanted to put in what I thought was a reasonable number, and we try not to take it. We don't want the overtime if we don't have to use it. I took 2 days off 2 weeks ago, and I wound up working until almost 6 o'clock yesterday, just trying to catch up, because I know that if I don't do that, then the rest of my week is just going to be stressful. So, we just do what we need to do. And, I'd much rather be able to just, punch out at 4 o'clock and just relax. But in the back of your head, you just still have all that stuff that you still need to do.
Sure. Understood. And then the other question is on the publications. You said you were going to try to get half of the code books again this year, but
Correct.
you indicated they were 1,500 and it was cut to 1,200. Can you
Right.
still get the code books you need?
I believe so, because like I said, because I've split it up over the 2 years. Usually the new codes take effect in October. And so I'm waiting till later in this fiscal year before I buy the code books, because I want to make sure it doesn't get pushed back again. Like I said, they sort of messed me up this last time because they're changing the book. They're just going to bypass the book they were going to, adopt and move on to the next book.
Thank you.
Oh,
You're welcome.
okay. Vicki, did you have something you wanted to add?
I will let Maria speak to it first. We may be saying the same thing, so I'll let her go first.
Maria?
Yes, I just want to comment on the overtime. As Bob mentioned, we are looking at the overtime to make sure that if it was COVID related, that it will be reimbursed by FEMA. And obviously, when we were closed down, staff was coming in, and some of it was due to COVID, and because of the fact that not everybody could be in the office. So some of them were working later hours. So we are researching that matter, and possibly a lot of it will be reimbursed by COVID, by FEMA.
Thank you. Vicki?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just want everyone to keep in mind this year, obviously, this is a year like no other year. It's very hard to use the numbers in this budget for comparable numbers to prior years, because things are just that much different. So I just want you to keep in mind that we don't necessarily look at this year as a comparable year in some instances, not all cases, but in some instances. You can't make that comparison. It's not an apples to apples comparison from what everyone's dealing with this year. So I just want you to just sort of keep that in mind. Thank you.
Any other questions for our building official? Okay, I don't see anything. Mr. Dunn, thank you very much, sir.
Thank you. Have a great day.
Bye now.
Bye-bye.
All right. We are 7 minutes ahead of schedule. Awesome. Good job. Right now, we're moving on to Donna Pelletieri, our tax collector, and we're on page 61 in the budget book. Hey, Donna. Just have to unmute, Donna.
Morning. Yes, I know. Good morning.
Good morning. All right, moving to page 61. Want to hit the highlights, Donna, first?
Okay, well, my budget is pretty similar to last year's. There's been really no change other than any contractual increases. Again, I was listening to the prior with Bob talking about how difficult it's been, and it has been difficult to give everyone the services that they deserve with only 2 people in the office at a time. So I'm glad they brought up about the overtime. I think Maria can verify this, that our overtime is being covered by COVID, that also, because our girls, the 2 that, whoever are coming in, they're coming in early. They're coming in at 7 just to keep up with the daily, without the, so that the office wouldn't get too far behind in anything. But I know that that's probably going to end. I didn't put any overtime in my budget request because I don't know. I don't know how to even calculate if we would even need any in the future. But if anyone has any questions for me, fire away.
Your goals and objectives for 21-22 to maintain the high rate of collection, fill vacant cashier position.
Yep.
To complete your Munis Link implementation, coordinating with the finance office, and to continue to investigate changing from quarterly to semi-annual collection of real estate taxes.
Correct. And so far, I ran the numbers this morning. So far for real estate, for the 19 grand list, which is the current grand list, we've collected 75.63%. So I am very happy with that number. And because April isn't even here yet, and we haven't, the January quarter is not due until April 1st because of the executive orders from the governor. So that is really good news. We're a little bit down with the car collections, but that's to be expected. And I did want to mention that we are down 1 person. We have a vacant position in our office, and it doesn't look like we're going to have anybody hired and trained anytime soon. So I know the part-time position the seasonal was cut out of our budget last year. Please I'm begging you not to cut that position this year, because we need that extra person. Especially if we're going to be on reduced, the whole office isn't there working. Right now, there's only 4 of us. And that's about it. It's hard, it's hard. We have vacations, like Bob had been saying, vacations are coming up. With the team situation, it's hard, because if one person on one team wants to go on vacation, that whole team has to stay working remotely, and then the other team has to come in. It changes weekly, so
Yes.
we have to be flexible. And
okay, I see 3 hands up. I see Marty, Michael, and Paul. We'll start with Marty.
Real quick. First, I appreciate the ability to pay online. It does make life easy, so thanks for that. Question I had was, maybe it's not you, maybe it's Maria. On the back part of the analysis where you're showing actuals in budget, there's a column called projection level 2. What does that mean? And maybe that's not you, Donna, maybe that's Maria. What is that? You're on, Maria, if you're trying to go, you're on.
Yes, yes. In the back of the page 67 you're referring to?
69 I was. It's on mine at 69. It says after a calendar year revenue budget of 161 million, there's projection level 2 of 167 million. I just never saw projection level 2. I don't know what that means.
That's just a budget for 2021. It says projected revises because we don't revise revenue budgets. but we do revise expenditure budgets based on transfers or supplementals. And that quoting is just there. I mean, the heading is just, it should be just budget, not revised.
I'm sorry, I'm not understanding what you're saying. So there's a column, it's a calendar year actuals, then we go calendar year revenue budget. So 117, I guess we budgeted 162 million? And then
Correct.
there's a projection that we're gonna do 167 million. Is that what that's saying?
No, that is the budget for fiscal year 2022. This is what we're projecting based on what we came up in the revenues and the mill rate
What was 161 million?
at the first selectmen's level. The 161 is the budget that's current in place, fiscal year 2021.
Oh, so level 2 is for, oh, you're saying for level for next year budget. Is that what you're saying?
Correct. And you know what? I'm looking at the revenues. Yeah, that's correct. 161 is for fiscal year 2021 that we're currently in. And that's the budget that was approved last year.
Okay. And level 2 is based on the first selectman's budget, what we'd need to pull on property tax. Is that what you're saying?
That's correct.
Now I understand. Okay, thank you for clarification.
Yep.
Mr. Barker.
Thanks very much, Michael Barker, Board of Finance. Ms. Pelletieri, thank you for the good report. I have a holdover question about online payment of taxes from the tax assessor, and I'll ask it this way, just given your report about staffing. Once we get all that set up in terms of being able to pay all of that online, in the long term, is that a burden on staff, or is it something that enables staff to work less? Or does it not matter?
We've been online. Our payments have been online since 2015. I don't really understand your question. I'm sorry.
I didn't understand what he's putting online.
Oh, the ability to pay fees, I think.
Yes.
Yeah.
Those fee payments. So is there no effect then?
No, it has been good. It's very easy because it gets electronically pulled in and posted for us. Any payments made online. So it's an asset for us.
So sort of notionally, and this year's not a great example, probably because we're still halfway in COVID, but notionally going forward, it might do things like reduce overtime, for instance. Not this year.
Yeah, I don't know if that would reduce overtime. You still get an extraordinary amount of people walking in, and that creates a problem for us. That's where we have most of our problem. The online system is if everyone could use it, it would be wonderful. But you know, some people just don't want to. They don't want to pay the fees associated with it. They want a receipt in their hand when they leave. You know, so but a lot of people do use it. A lot of people do use it, and it has helped us tremendously.
Okay. Just one final, but in your opinion, is there anything we could do to encourage people to use it then that we're not doing?
No, we tell them that you know, the fees are clearly stated, obviously, because it's not us, it's a company that does this for us. The most inexpensive way is the electronic check option, which is $2. And to me, to pay 10 bills for a $2 charge is worth it. You know, you don't have to write checks, you don't have to get an envelope, you don't have to get postage. We steer people toward it, but evidently, you know, it's up to them whether they want to use it or not.
Yeah, habits die hard.
Yeah,
Thank you.
They do. You're welcome. And if you're looking at, I just wanted to bring up some of the expenses that are unpaid from the current budget are because of the delay with the executive orders. I haven't spent that money yet, but it's going to be spent in the month of April. With our delinquent statements are delayed for cars, you know, everything's delayed. So that money will be going out in April instead of February, like it usually does.
Sorry, I was on mute. I was yelling at my dog before. Paul, you're next, and then Mr. DeGennaro, and then Mark Pascola.
I'm good. Marty asked my question.
Oh, excellent. Vin?
Hi. I have a question about your goals and objectives, about the quarterly to semi-annual payment. Could you speak to that, about the benefits of doing it either way, and what type of feedback you're getting about that?
Well, the town obviously has always been quarterly. My position is everything our office does is quarterly. We are constantly in a state of collection of one thing or another. Either it's taxes, and on the off months, it's sewer payments, which is a huge undertaking. I just think that the banks, most people have mortgages, and the trend is going that way, where there are mortgages and the banks pay us. Their escrow accounts are calculated on a year, and they have the money no matter how they pay it out, whether it's quarterly or twice a year. Most towns are twice a year. I think it would be beneficial for the town on real estate to go to twice a year rather than but I have to wait until August. This past year is no indication of how anything is. What I'd like to do in August is have our software company take the list of all the accounts that are not escrowed. And I want to see how many people are paying more than one installment at a time in July. Because in my experience, a lot of people pay for the whole year. A lot of people pay twice a year for whatever their own personal reasons. And if that number is, if we're only quarterly for a small amount of people, I think it would be beneficial for the town to go to twice a year.
Would it improve your efficiency of your workload?
Yes. Yes. Instead of doing things the same things every 3 months, it would be every 6 months. Yes,
Okay.
It would.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, Mr. Muscola.
Hi, Mark Mescal, Board of Finance. Thanks, Donna and the team for all the hard work, especially during these challenging times. Can you tell me if you look back, how much uncollected taxes, not stuff that's on appeal, but just people haven't paid? What is the accounts receivable, if you will, for the town of delinquent taxes? Do we know?
Well, are you talking about just the current year or all years?
No, I'm talking about stuff that was due that has not yet been paid. So people have not paid.
Right. Well, like I said before, on the current year, we are actually on real estate ahead of in our collection.
I'm talking about like prior year stuff. That, in other words, not current year. Tax year, last fiscal year. We billed out X, we only collected Y, right? How much is this?
All right, well, the last fiscal year, as of June 30th, we collected 98.07%. But that is a misleading figure though, because of the extensions from the executive orders. Everybody, they got their payments delayed or whatever. As of August 31st, it was 98.75. And then as of December, it was 99.16. And that's the 2018 grand list.
Okay.
All right. So
it doesn't feel like there's a lot of unpaid taxes going back, a few years.
No, I think in collection of real estate that the town is in good shape with the real estate.
Great. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions? I think we're pretty good. Thanks, Donna.
All right, thank you. Have a good day.
Bye now.
Bye.
All right. Bill, do you want us to go on with Rena and general government before we take our break?
Yeah, that would be fine.
All right. Next, we're moving on to planning and zoning and economic development. We'll start on page 133. Rena Bacalar, our Director of Economic Development.
Hi.
Good morning, Rena.
Good morning. How's everybody?
Good,
is
thank
Rob
you.
on? I'm just trying to, are we starting on the planning and zoning or the economic development budget?
Let's start on planning and zoning if possible. I can flip-flop whatever you want if Rob's not available yet.
I think he probably thought 10 o'clock was his appointment, but we can, if we can start with economic development, I can text him and
We sure can. I didn't realize we were that far ahead of schedule.
So let me just, I just want him to have an ability to speak to his direct budget.
Yep, not a problem. We can move to economic development first. We'll go to page 143 while you're doing that.
Okay.
Anybody need a stretch break? Everybody's doing okay? Anybody else need to yell at their dog?
Okay. So I don't know if you want me to just review some of the, I mean, I'm not asking for any changes really to my budget. Certainly this year I wasn't able to do some of the things, events in economic development that we had planned because of the limitations associated with the pandemic. So I have quite a bit of money in my budget that is unspent. I'm hoping that perhaps before the end of June, there may be an ability to do a little bit more in terms of events and that kind of thing, but we'll have to wait and see. You'll also notice that there's lag salary that's gone unspent because Gail, you'll remember Gail, who was our assistant, it's a split position between planning and zoning and economic development. And in March of last year, she retired and moved to Arizona. And it was all happening when the lockdown happened, the shutdown happened. So we have not hired, we actually just interviewed somebody and decided to hire somebody yesterday, but we've gone almost the entire year without anyone. Basically, I've been clerking my own meetings and doing my pieces, and between other staff, we've been picking up, and it's been extremely stressful because, as you can understand from listening to Bob Dunn, there was a lot of activity, even given the, COVID issues, whether the activity was permit related or commercial development related, and trying to keep all that commercial development going, or supporting our businesses through the shutdown and the reopenings and the technical assistance needed there. And I can tell you, I'm working currently with 11 businesses that are going to be opening this year already, mostly small businesses in Trumbull. So there's both challenges and great things happening at the same time, which puts a lot of activity. And so being short-staffed has been a challenge, but we are excited that we found somebody good. So those are some of the reasons for the unspent money.
Rena, can you do me a favor? Before you talk about the fact that you're upset that you haven't spent your money, can you talk about some of the good things that you've done this year? I know that you guys did some amazing work supporting our businesses during the COVID shutdown. I know that you had some extra help with that. And if you could talk a little bit about that before we move on to the budget numbers.
Sure. We had to swiftly, really try to translate a lot of what was going on and get that out to our businesses. So immediately we set up a COVID business recovery page on our website, which is updated pretty much daily, or now maybe a few times a week, but it was daily. We issued out of my department over 102 updates and messages and information blasts to the business community last year related to COVID, in addition to our regular correspondence for economic development. I have provided a tremendous amount of personal technical assistance. We tried to get things like, we did get banners out to the community. We've been raising money to support our restaurants long term. I can give you a piece of good news that really hasn't hit the street yet. We applied for some grants to support our residents and our restaurants through a local meals program. And we had initially applied for $100,000 to go out to our restaurants, and we were doing a startup meeting and contracting. And Vicki and I appealed to the state, saying that our need both for the residents and for our restaurants was greater. We applied, we asked them to consider another $100,000 to us in addition to the 100. They just approved that yesterday. So through our local meals program, which is under the banner that we're going to have this year of Trumbull Celebrates Local, we now have $200,000 that we're going to be getting out for the dual purpose of supporting food security, restaurants, and getting commerce into our restaurants. So we're really excited about things like that. So, in addition, we have a lot of improvements going on in Long Hill Green in the Route 111 corridor. I run the project teams for those project implementations with my colleagues, George Estrada, Bill Mauer, Rob, and others. We work as a team to make sure that we're moving the ball down the field in those areas. So we are at full design in the Route 111 by the Fitness Edge Plaza. That light is the design is approval. Once we complete the easements in that area, we're going to go to construction bid this year for the installation of that light in front of that plaza and the redirection of the Quantic River Trail to a safe crossing there. That is a 2021 project, and we're very excited about that progress. Long Hill Green, you can see some of the transformation happening there if you've been through there. We are at about 90% design on the light and the sidewalk installations that we're doing there, much of which is grant funded, but some the town is funding, especially related to the light. That will go to bid also in 2021, and we'll start the construction there. You saw that we did some construction, a sidewalk and retaining wall down Whitney Avenue to get us partially down to the trail. A lot of what I'm talking about is grants that we've won. You'll know that part of my role is to help the town, not just economic development, but every department to apply for grants. I also help administer those grants. Dan Martin does, and Maria does the financial administration, and I do the project administration, reporting, and so forth for all of the town's grants. So we've had a lot underway. I also chair the town's long-term recovery committee, which meets about monthly, and some of these initiatives I'm talking about, like the local meals project, were outbursts of that long-term recovery committee. So there's been just a tremendous amount going on. Some challenging. The mall, I heard you talking about, Paul was asking some questions, is an ongoing challenge, but I believe we're going to have some opportunity there as well. We are poised to do a world-class planning effort there. We're in the process of raising some additional funding for the planning effort and developing the RFQ and scope of work. I'm working on that now for that effort. I hope to have that RFQ out in the end of April. We have the Trumbull Center corridor study, which you all funded a few years back, and we have gone out to RFQ. We selected a team to work with us on that. We had our first team meeting 2 months ago. We're in the process of pulling together the background work and starting the individual stakeholder meetings, and there'll be community stakeholder meetings to take a look at that whole corridor. We expect a redevelopment plan to come in this year from Trumbull Center. We've been meeting with property owners there about their vision for that. So that's something that I think you'll hear more about as the year unfolds. We're kind of excited about some change and some activity down there that's positive and can help with some revitalization of that area. So that's just there's lots of other things going on. I think you should know, if you haven't read some of this already in the paper, the plaza that's going up where the former Marissa's restaurant was, that is 85% leased already. A really nice mix of businesses. There's a release on the former Mex on Main site. We had where Chips was, we have AFC, it's an urgent care center going in that space. And they are also putting their corporate office in the Trumbull space. So that's a nice change for that plaza, helps the parking. Planning and zoning just approved a major patio expansion, a permanent patio expansion for Prime 111. We have a pet store replacement coming in for the pet store that went out. That's being finalized. So that plaza will be full. So we have a lot of activity going on. We have in the area where 10 Trumbull and Woodside is, and the other 55 or older area, we now have some businesses that are looking to locate that will provide amenities to people living and working in that neighborhood. So I am working, I think it's too premature to say who and what, but I'm working with someone who's looking to open up a great business in that neighborhood. And the reason they're coming there, just like the daycare located there, but the reason they're coming there is because they're excited about the mixed use neighborhood and they want to put their business there. So these are the kinds of things that are happening. And, we certainly, again, have our challenges. Some of our businesses really I can't applaud some of our business owners enough at what they've been through this year and how they stuck with it and they tried to reinvent themselves and figure out how to adapt. And they really, put a lot behind their businesses. And the Trumbull community has been amazing at supporting our local businesses, really and truly. So we're very lucky.
Thank you. I just think it's really important that people know how much activity has been going on in your office.
My office is a disaster. There's papers everywhere. It's just been things in bags going back and forth, but I think everybody's looking forward to a little bit more of a stable and normal year.
Okay. Again, I apologize for the squeaky toy noises in the background. It's my puppy. Marty, you have a question, and then Elaine.
More of a comment than a question. I just, thank you for going through that. I just think it's amazing what a small office can do. I am shocked I didn't know everything you just said there. I think it's just incredible. So with all the challenges we have, it's really encouraging to hear so much happening in the town of Trumbull. So thank you so much for everything you and your department have accomplished. I think it's just wild. So thank you.
Appreciate the support.
Oop.
Elaine.
Yeah, hi. Elaine Hammers, Board of Finance. Rena, I just want to mention, and thank you. I get the, I guess, I don't want to say their emails, I guess the newsletters you send out to businesses with the information. And I just want to say that it's very helpful. Even if it's something I've gotten from someplace else, it's good for me to know that the businesses in our town that are connected to your newsletter are getting it also. Sometimes it applies to me, sometimes it doesn't. It doesn't matter. It's always good to know what's going on.
Thank you.
And I guess the only question I have is, do we have any movement in Trumbull Center? I know that the CVS is up and the Starbucks moved. Will we ever work towards filling the old grocery store place?
So, couple things that are going on that folks may or may not know about. Trumbull Grill, the former Marie's, is moving across the street to the space next door to Rings End. They're going to have a new place there, and that will help make way for eventually that building to come down and the building where Starbucks to come down to open that plaza up. We're also expecting a potential redevelopment plan, and I can't speak to all the details right now, for that area. So I think with that going on, and with some of the other changes, that you've already seen happen there, we're poised for, I think, more attractiveness of potential tenants for all of the retail space there. So I'm actually very encouraged by some things by some conversations we've been having, and the potential for Trumbull Center and some change there this year and next year. So, that should be coming more formally to our departments in the next month or two. Rob and I have been in a number of conversations that were conceptual in nature, but are moving toward more of an actual application to planning and zoning.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mrs. Tesoro, then Vinny and Mary.
Thanks. Just Rena, if you could, for 2 more minutes, and I would just like Rena to talk a little bit more about that local meals program and Trumbull Celebrates Local. I just think it's so important what Rena's been able to accomplish here, of actually increasing that amount to $200,000, and how that helps both our needy residents and our restaurants at the same time. So just a couple more minutes just to explain that program.
Yes, so basically the concept is that we have residents that have been certainly affected financially by COVID, and there's been layoffs and people that are either underemployed right now or unemployed or having other challenges. They're also having health challenges. They're still being quarantined or perhaps sick. So what this program is designed to do, and my partners in implementing this in the town are Dan Martin, our Deputy Finance Director, who's been fantastic, and Michelle Jacob, who is our social services director and seniors. And they are just, we work so beautifully together as a team, and that we are going to be identifying those residents in town, throughout town in need. And then my job is to recruit the restaurants, which we've done, and to train them about how this is going to work. And we've made it very simple. Folks will be given, there'll be a process where they're given an opportunity to order from our restaurants right off the existing menus. We're not asking restaurants to go create and do new things. They're struggling just to keep going. So where they're going to eat off of the regular menus, and the town will get invoiced weekly from the restaurants that are signed on to the program. And they will get this extra business. And at the same time, our seniors, our vulnerable, our folks that are economically challenged will be getting some help with their food security and meals. That is, in a nutshell, the program. It's the reason I had hoped to launch it in February, but we were in the midst of the contract negotiation and had an opportunity to ask, Vicki and I wanted to ask for more money, which we did. So it held up our contract, but for a very good reason. So now we'll be launching in the coming weeks this program. We have all year and then next year to use the money, but we think we're going to use it in probably 3 quarters of the year, be able to push this money out the door. This is $200,000 that the restaurants in economic activity that the restaurants would not have gotten. So this is important. The State Department that's funding this is the State Department of Housing, believe it or not. They oversee this particular bucket of funding. They are so excited about this. And they feel they want to keep in touch with us on how it's going. They didn't get any proposals similar to this, and they thought it was very creative, and they really love it. And they want to be able to see how it goes. And if it goes well, they want to be able to talk about it nationally. So you never know where things can go. And we're really, I appreciate everybody's support. I really do so much. And my colleagues in other town departments.
Thank you. Vin, then Mary, and Elaine.
Vinny DeGennaro, Board of Finance. First of all, thank you, Lorena, for all of the work you do personally. I think that a lot of what happens is based on your personal contacts in the industry, and I think that makes such a difference for us. So thank you for your efforts and the efforts of the team. I have a couple questions, and one I think is a pretty easy one. Is actually, they're both easy. How is the Trumbull Center corridor defined? What does that really mean? Is that like the block that we know as Trumbull Center between the cemetery and, let's say, Daniel's Farm, or is it bigger? What does it really mean?
So that's a great question. I'm glad you asked that, because that's really important for people to understand. We define the study area from where Tate Road meets Church Hill to the corner where Reservoir meets White Plains Road. And however, we've asked the consulting team, and this came out in one of our first team meeting, to view the gateway in a little broader in terms of area than that, so that as we look at making the corridor more functional, attractive, and so forth, that it doesn't just start there, because there's a lead in from both sides. But that's the basic area that we're looking at. So it is bigger than just that one little area in front of the main commercial buildings.
Okay, thank you. Second question, could you give an update on the old Oxford property as to where things stand on that development? And I see all the Amazon trucks parked up there.
So there's a temporary lease for parking Amazon cars on that site that the landlord negotiated with Amazon. That is temporary in nature. The proposal for that site, the redevelopment proposal, which is a continuum of 55 or older housing and services, starting with an 55 or older active adult, like if I wanted to live there. Yes, I am 55. I just turned 55. So all these benefits that come to you when you're 50, I never knew, So, so the active adult piece, then there would be an independent living piece, a assisted living piece, and a memory care. the initial zone change to allow that that's about $100 to $120 million redevelopment proposal on those 17 acres. The initial zone changing of that, the text amendment and the zone change was challenged in court. Those appeals were denied. There were motions to re-argue. They were denied. There was they took it to the appellate court for consideration. That was also denied. As of, I was speaking with some of their team yesterday. They're getting ready to come in. Excuse me. They're getting ready to come in now with their next step, which is their site plan. They have to go to wetlands too. So they have to go to wetlands, and then they have to come in for their site plan application, which I believe they will do this year. I expect that those decisions could be appealed also, which, you know, takes time to work through the court process, particularly with everything with COVID. Some things, you know, can take a little bit longer, but that you know, Vicky and I, you know, certainly are, you know, working to make sure that the property and the project is still in play and is still feeling supported. I think the community really likes the project and thinks it's a good use. And for the most part, we've had quite a bit of community feedback on it. So hopefully we'll see some movement in terms of the land use process. I don't see construction, if you want my honest opinion, on that site till 2023, given the potential appeals to the process. If all those appeals, if their applications get approved, and if it's appealed, and if those appeals work through, and everything gets finally cleared, I say perhaps 2023 construction.
Okay, thank you. One last question, and I always get asked this when I go to Home Depot. There's a bank of buildings at the back there that have never been occupied. Is there any reason why that's happening? Is that still a Home Depot issue, or is that something else?
You know, there's a couple, that's tough space. I mean, it's way, you know, I know Home Depot's a magnet for people, but one, there's limitations of what can go in there based on Home Depot's lease. That's one issue. Two, it's retail space that doesn't have really good frontage to the road. It has some signage at the road, but it's in a rear place. So not everybody's going to be attracted to that, I think. And then three, you know, you know, I'm not sure the rest of it, you know, the equation, but those are some of the challenges. I can tell you that there's been 2 inquiries recently that I know about, and there certainly was some discussion, but nothing really, you know, came to fruition at this point. Candidly, you know, I thought that Rob, I went to Rob, I had come back from a conference, and I was thinking that should be an early childhood center, candidly, back there, because it doesn't need to be on the road. It's convenient to people's commuter pathways and stuff, but that really hasn't come to pass either. But it's going to be tough to locate something there and drive the business, especially like a retail. Right now, retail is, you really need to be right on the road and visible and walkable, and, you know, like the Marissa's Plaza, you saw how that leased up, but it's prime where it's located, you know.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thanks very much.
Mary?
Yeah, just quickly, Mary Eisen, Town Council. I hate to echo Marty, but Rena, I just want to say you've been doing an amazing job during the year of COVID. The amount of grants that you've applied for and the creativity, as Vicky brought up, with the restaurants and, you know, being able to help our residents, it really is amazing. So I just wanted to echo a thank you, and I hope 2023 is not the year of Oxford being developed. Let's go for 2022. But
Okay.
Thank you for everything.
Thank you, Mary. Thank you so much.
Elaine?
Okay, unmuted. 2 follow-ups, Rena. The food program, which I think is absolutely fantastic. One of the concerns I've had during COVID, and maybe everybody else has noticed this, and I think I might have mentioned it. It seems to me food prices in grocery stores have gone up significantly in the last year. I don't know if it's because every time I walk out, I'm looking at the cash register receipt thinking, what did I get? But that really concerned me with if you put that along with the people who may not be working, the level of food insecurity in the entire country is really been foremost in my mind, worrying about this. So this is ideal. I just have a question. You say they can call in and they can order. Does it get delivered or do they pick it up? Because some of the seniors we might want to reach may not be able to pick it up. But I believe that there are some organizations in town, excuse me, apologize, especially like Trumbull Helps, which could organize people to help with these deliveries. I know I've seen where they're helping with some of the school lunch deliveries. And so the launch of this, I think, is particularly crucial, both in identifying the people who need it, which I certainly think social services is a good focal point. Certainly for families, I'm always a little concerned that there's seniors isolated in their homes that don't reach out to that. Either they don't know about it, or sometimes maybe it's an issue of pride. But I'm worried about reaching them, and then once they acknowledge they need it, getting it to them. And so I wonder what those plans are in place, and are there some local organizations we could partner with to encourage this?
You know, I totally agree on the grocery store prices. By the way, I don't have any documented evidence of it, but it's my experience, and it's like the worst possible time for groceries to be skyrocketing. So it's definitely an issue. I think that the idea of a Trumbull, and what was the name of the group? Trumbull
Helps.
Is that with Jeff Kunkel?
Yes.
Okay, that's a great idea, because yes, the grant focuses, this is not for sit-in dining, it's for takeout, curbside, or delivery. But not every single restaurant that's signed up has the delivery. So if I may want to reach out to Jeff and his team to see if they would help as we unfold this. That's an excellent idea.
I know a lot of the restaurants, they'll have a sign up, they do DoorDash or whatever the deliveries, but I believe that a significant number of the seniors have no idea what that type of delivery is, or frankly, how to use it. Even some of us who know it exists aren't sure how to use it. So, and I don't know if there are fees involved in that, and if those are covered or not. There are all things to maybe look at.
So the DoorDashes and those groups, they really take a big chunk from the restaurant too. They
Okay.
take a big chunk from the restaurant. So I'm meeting of our internal staff team on this on Friday at 12:30. So I'm going to bring up to Michelle and Dan, or to Michelle specifically, that we connect with this group and see if there's a way we can, in the front end, put them in place for those that need it. I mean, we don't want to run them around for everybody if somebody can, or if the restaurant does have delivery, but for those that don't, that's actually a really good idea. So I appreciate that. Thank you.
And I have a follow-up question. Someone mentioned, and we've all seen, that the Prime trucks are all parked in the old Oxford building. And you say it's a temporary lease. But my question is, when that lease is up and the building is developing, where are all those cars and trucks going to go? Because I'm assuming some of them are the employees who park their cars there and then pick up their trucks, and some of the trucks are kept there overnight. But there's a lot of vehicles in that lot.
Yeah, so my understanding is, Elaine, and I don't want to speak out of school, but I believe Amazon is working on a permanent surplus parking area right over the border somewhere from us. And that will be the transition. And I don't want to say that that's absolute, but that's my understanding of what's in the works.
Okay, because I know that we have kind of adjacent to them the bus garage and some town property. The bus parking. And at one point, and I don't know if we still do this, we used to rent some of that space to employees who might have had RVs or boats they needed to store over the summer. And I don't know if we're still doing that, or if there's a potential for the town to make some parking space available on a more long-term lease, which frankly makes us a little money. At the risk of sounding totally mercenary, that is the role of this board.
I don't know about whether we rent it or not. George Estrada probably knows that. That would be probably under his tent, or Bill Mauer.
This goes back a long time. I
Yeah.
want to say it was back under Dave Wilson that we first started renting out those spots. And I
Okay,
don't know if we do it anymore.
I'm not sure. George would know, I'm pretty
Okay.
sure.
It's an option of
Yeah.
offering assistance to what has been a welcomed business.
Mhm.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, Mrs. Tesoro.
Yeah, just quickly, in addition to, Trumbull Helps, another option for us maybe to look at is the CERT team in town. They are volunteers, trained volunteers to help with anything really that goes on in the town. So that is another group we can look to. I believe they were doing deliveries for social services at one point during COVID. So we might want to reach out to them as well.
That's a great idea. Is that Megan? Who's in charge of that?
It is.
Lee.
Megan would be the first person to touch base with.
Okay.
Now, there are also other nonprofit groups. There's Impact Trumbull. There's a bunch of them out there that have been collecting and distributing things during COVID. So we have some great resources locally.
We're working on another project with Impact Trumbull, but I won't announce it till it's done. Vicky's got me involved with this small team of people that they're a wonderful group too. Yeah.
They really are. So I don't see any other hands, any other questions for economic development with Rena. Otherwise, we'll move on. I see Rob Labrandy's on, and we can move on to planning and zoning. On page 133, Marty. And everybody else, Marty. Rob, are you there?
Yeah, hi. I'm here.
All right. Do you want to walk us through just your goals and objectives and what you got accomplished and what you didn't because of COVID and where you are, and then we can get started?
Sure. So 2019, with everything, or 2020, what was going on, actually, we did do a lot of positive things, and we did get a lot of stuff done. We did finalize our IL2 and IL3 studies with Stantec that we hired. So if you ever want to take a look at those two studies for the IL2 zone, which is around Reservoir and Oakview Drive, that's finalized. In the IL3 zone where Unilever is also, those two projects have been finalized. So and those are on the planning and zoning webpage if you want to take a look. It shows we had meetings with the public, we had meetings with the business owners around the area to kind of come up with two plans that are actually coming to fruition. Actually, the IL2 is working pretty well with the businesses around there. I have a meeting with UI and the Kennedy Center to kind of extend the sidewalks along there. So hopefully that we get a full circle or walkable area in there from the beginning of Reservoir to the residents at Oakview and around to the school on the other side. So there's a lot of good things happening there if you take a drive by. We did host the planning and zoning seminar at that time, which the commissioners did enjoy. We're probably going to do another one, hopefully sooner than later, once we can actually meet. We're in the process of digitizing everything still, which is ongoing. We've been assisting the RENA with the Stern Village, the small cities grants. Sustainable CT, you probably all know. I know Mary knows. We've got our bronze certification. So we have a great group of volunteers from other commissions that helped us get our bronze certification, become sustainable town, which is really great. Now we're all pretty ramped up to hopefully get our silver certification in the near future. We do have a website for that they've developed, and a lot of public engagement has been happening. So a lot of good things have been going on. We did develop some user-friendly checklist for the zoning board of appeals. We get a lot. Zoning board of appeals is more of a residential aspect, so most of the residents fill out that application. So there's been a lot of confusion over the time about, they've asked us the same questions over and over again. So we felt that a checklist to help them out to better understand what they have to be required to do is required, and it has helped a lot of people. And we're still thinking about doing our long range Route 25 study. It's in our POCD that a long range Route 25 study on the Monroe Trumbull line is a good idea. We still have a couple other plans, like Rena probably said, around Trumbull Center. So that's kind of on the back burner right now until we kind of square away with in some other areas. So what we'd like to do for the following year, still work on our zoning regulations. Zoning regulations are an ever-changing landscape, especially now with COVID and what's going on. So we're still working on that and the process and how to submit that to the public and to the commission. We're going to we're going to look to update the POCD to add a few of the studies that we've already finalized as well too, so that when the commissions or developer comes in front of the commission, we could refer to those studies as well too. So they're not studies sitting on a shelf, they're actually active studies being done and being used to assist the developer and guide us of what should be in those locations. Like I said too, we're hopefully looking to maybe submit for silver certification. If we do have enough points, I know Mary's working on it to figure out what kind of points we do have, and Kevin Malone and Mary Isaac and a few other people on that board. So we're looking at that. We started our Trumbull Center study, which is really important. As Rena said, we did talk to the property owner. So it's a great time because they're looking to develop and we're looking to make a plan. So it's great that we can kind of work side by side with the developer, get the public's input to kind of come up with a plan that kind of makes everybody proud of what we can accomplish there. We've been working with Long Hill Green. As you could tell, we're kind of at the final phase of the building where the plaza is. We're looking at extending sidewalks along the area, traffic calming around there, streetscaping. So this is we're probably around maybe 75% of the way done there, but there's a lot of pedestrian connections that need to be finalized that we're still working on. I would like to in the near future develop a multimodal transportation sidewalk master plan for the town to figure out where sidewalks need to go and should go and how well they would be utilized. When I came to this town and the first time I drove around from being in urban areas, it felt like it was, I would say, somebody without any eyebrows. I couldn't tell what was going on, but I knew that there was really limited sidewalks in some areas. So we really need to focus on where that has to go. And just a few other things. I am the fair housing officer in the town too. So, if anybody has complaints with landlords or ADA issues and so forth, they contact me as well too. So I haven't gotten too many calls, but I just wanted to put that out there to make sure that the public knows that if they have issues with landlords or housing situations, they can always call my office. Thank you.
Marty, I see your hand up.
Thanks. A couple, a question and just two quick observations. Just in general, I think Mary gets enough credit for everything, so I think we should all just stop that. I think that's enough for everybody. And I may have to take you up on some of the landlord complaints as well. Houses in Mary's name, but we'll talk about that separately. I did in previous meetings, we've talked about with all the new development that came in, there were some concerns on the number of children that would be in these new developments. And I know we've been out a little bit longer. I thought I saw some data that looked positive, but I wonder if you could just kind of share that, because I know there were different thoughts in the community about how many children were going to come into these new developments. And if you have some data that you could share, that would be great.
Well, I have been in talks with the Board of Ed to figure out what those Oakview, the 10 Trumbull, that property is 100% occupied as of right now. They actually had to rent out two out of the three of their models. So it's completely CO'd in about maybe a year and a half, which just shows the need for this type of housing in that area. So it was really astonishing. And to the number of school children, they did all the developments that were approved had to submit an impact study, and then that impact study stated the number of school children, which I think was I can't remember the exact number, but it was really on point to what was projected, and it was around, I think it was.
Rob, did you want me to?
Yeah.
There were two ways that when that development the 10 Trumbull development was being approved, the developer said there'd be between 16 and 22 school-age children approximately. And the Board of Ed at that time, through Mylone and McBroom, did their own independent study at that time, and they said between 30 and 45 kids. With 100% occupancy, there's approximately 34 school-age children. It was actually down to 30, but the highest number I heard was 34. Some of those children were already in the school system and some are not in the public school system. That's the sub data that Rob is working with the Board of Ed to comb out so we can get a real understanding of what's happening there. So that sort of on the low end of the Mylone and McBroom study projection, and a little bit more than what the developers projected, somewhere in between there, but still a manageable, I think, number. In addition, to speak to other service drain issues, we stay in touch with the other departments that could have service drain, and we haven't heard anything out of the ordinary at all in terms of the development creating some massive uptick in, crime or it's basic things. They've had some car breaks and like any neighborhood, but things seem to be pretty solid there from what we can tell so far, and we're monitoring it closely. The management of the complex is very sound and has a good handle on the property, and it seems to be a place that people are enjoying living.
Yeah, and as you know, we do have our moratorium on the apartments. So with that moratorium, the commission has asked that we give them an update on the current situation in terms of impact. So that's what I'm working on right now. So I'll get that information to you a little more detailed, a little more exact when we do get that.
Great, thank you. I appreciate that. It's encouraging to hear. Thank you.
I don't see any other hands up right now, Rob, but I do have one question. In the legal notice line, it was estimated that your department request was 30,000 and the first selectman reduced it to 25,000 based on historical usage. You think we'll be okay within that realm?
Yeah, I think because of the state statute that came around where we didn't need to post anything in the paper, it had to be on the town website. We did save, a year's worth of legal of funds there in that line item. So that was definitely a positive thing.
Okay.
I think with 25, we should be okay.
Excellent, thank you. I see Elaine has her hand up now.
Yeah, hi, Elaine Hammers, Board of Finance. I just wanted, can you clarify what you don't have to put in the paper anymore? Because I had this question earlier with another department, and they said they still had to put everything in the newspaper. I think it was the assessor.
Yeah, he said he wasn't sure.
So can you clarify for us,
So,
Rob?
so we did have when COVID came out, there was a legislative act that, that all land use, departments didn't have to post in the paper, but they had to post on the town website, the notices.
Okay,
And we've been following that mandate. Once an emergency or when the governor withdraws that act, then we'll have to go back to posting in the paper.
okay, but will we still then even need the 25,000?
When we have to post in the paper again,
Right.
I
Well,
I-
no, but if he doesn't release that, or if
Yeah,
maybe they'll finally figure out we don't need to do this in this day and age and relieve us of another burden.
I've been saying that for years, and the legislature would just laugh at me. They said no, because, you know, that's what's holding the newspapers.
Right, afloat. But
Yeah.
it's interesting because, well, then what does COVID have to do with not putting it in the newspaper?
Mhm.
But maybe my mind is just not working right, but I don't see the connection
Mhm.
that
Well,
if you can relieve it for the short term, then just relieve it for the long term.
And we haven't had any issues with anybody calling us saying that they weren't informed or anything, you know, in this day and age. So, with applications, so it's definitely a positive not having it. I'd love to take that line item off.
Perhaps it would be a good idea to contact our legislative delegation and point that out and see if they can have any impact.
Yeah, please.
And my last question, I know a number of times we've mentioned the mall. Given that we've recently read something in the paper where it potentially can be up for sale, do we see any major impact coming there?
Major from the mall.
Yeah.
You know, that's more of a Rena question. I don't know, Rena, if you want to add. Because we are
Rena,
doing
I'm coming in and out.
Mike, can you hear me? I'm sorry, I'm having a technical glitch. So we've known for some time that URW's assets were deteriorating and that they were probably going to look to unload a lot of their malls that they bought just a few years ago in North America. So at this point, there is not a buyer yet for the Trumbull Mall. There are definitely people inquiring about it. And Vicki and I are, you know, always trying to make sure to the degree we can that if the mall sells, that it does not sell to a poor owner, if you will. I don't know how else to say it. We can't control everything, but we can certainly send out quite a bit of strong messaging about what we expect, the kind of owner we'd like to see, that kind of thing. And we've been doing that in a number of ways. It's not necessarily a bad thing that the mall sells, it's just whose hands it goes into, you know what I'm saying? Because while Westfield, and this is me just giving you my opinion, I'm not rendering this opinion for the town. Westfield was a much more active owner. URW has been a very different kind of owner. And so, you know, I would love to see a really active owner come there and really be a part of working with us to re-envision that mall. So, you know, more to come. There isn't an owner today. There's not a buyer today, excuse me. But what's happening is the debt on the property is pretty high. And I think URW was holding out at a certain price. But I think that as time goes by, they're softening on that. So that's why we're in very close conversation with all of the interests and some, you know, others about this. And that's why the planning study on a parallel track to this is important, because it'll help show what the community, you know, wants to see there and so forth. So we do have also, and I can't speak to specifics, I hope you understand, but we do have some interest humming around for the Lord and Taylor box. That box particularly is owned by Hudson Bay. So in other words, Hudson Bay is a different company and they own the physical structure. And there's a land lease with URW for the property underneath it. So really it's Hudson Bay that has the majority of say over what happens to the actual building where Lord and Taylor was. There is some interest in that building, but nothing that's been signed, sealed, and delivered or could be reported at this time.
Are there any other spaces in that mall that are like that?
That is the Fitness Edge, not the Fitness Edge, the
LA Fitness.
at the LA Fitness. There's some type of a situation with that structure too. It may not be exactly the same, but there's an issue there.
Thank you.
Anybody else have any other questions for Rob in terms of the budget numbers for planning and zoning? If not, I see that Chief Lombardo and Chief Burns and Anthony Lopez have joined us to move on to the police department. But before we do that, I'd like to suggest that we break so that Trumbull Community Television can take the loop for our live stream and cut it there. And we can have a moment of silence for Lord and Taylor for the lack of dress shopping available now and the sales and coupons. So if we could take a 5-minute break so everybody can make a quick pit stop, walk your dog, whatever you need to do, and then come back and we'll begin again just a few minutes. Does that sound okay? All right.
All right, thank you.